I see a God who's patient. I mean, on our time scales, the universe seems very, very old, and it would, it takes a while to have the universe develop and unfold to the point where we have planets that we can live on. And I see that God has created an amazing process that's unfolding to create the kind of habitats that now have the kind of life that can respond to God. That's a sense of patience. And, there are Christians, my brothers and sisters in the faith, who might envision a more instantaneous creation in which everything appeared suddenly. And that's also a valid interpretation of Scripture. It's not the way that I interpret Scripture, but it is the way many Christians do. And yet the way I look at Scripture and compare it to what we understand from science is that creation process, that allowing to develop, is a characteristic of God's patience and God's foreknowledge of a universe that would eventually be very productive for life. I see also a sense of love and faithfulness that is sort of embodied in the universe, that we have provision for stable life here, at least here. There may be many other places where there's provision for stable life, but we know it exists at least here. And we also know that the physical forces that we depend on are reliable. I mean, we have gravity that's stable today and tomorrow. We have time that appears to be going, at least as our experience is, in one direction, so that we don't have cause and effect suddenly turning back on each other all the time. We have a sense of faithfulness that is in line with the description of God that we have in the Scripture. So I also see there's a whole aspect of activity going on. I think I mentioned some of the activities. Stars are forming. There are probably planets forming right now in some of these circumstellar debris disks that we see around other stars. We see explosions in the centers of other galaxies around these massive explosions from the core source of a supermassive black hole. We see jets being emitted from these black holes. We see jets being emitted from young stars as they form. All of that's material being caught up in magnetic fields, spewed out. We see activity in our own solar system. When we look at moons around other planets, we see volcanoes going off on Io. We see all kinds of stuff going on, even plate tectonics on our own Earth. I think that's characteristic also of an active God, not a stagnant God. God has created a universe that's active. God himself, as described in Scripture, is active and cognizant. So these are all characteristics that fit together with the biblical God that's described to us in Scripture. And again, those are my own philosophical interpretations. They're certainly not scientific conclusions, but I think they do tell us something about the nature of God.